Peterson, Caitlin Clark is participating in shoot-around this morning, going through warm-ups, then some non-contact drills with the second team. She hasn't officially returned to practice, I'm told, but this is her first time working with the team since her injury.
Okay, this is wild. Caitlin Clark just stepped back on the court. The entire WNBA is trembling. After weeks off with a bad groin, the Indiana Fever's standout guard is injured. Finally back in practice. Everyone's asking if this affects everything. Is she returning too soon? Exactly what the Fever needs. One thing is clearly clear. The league isn't ready for this comeback.
So what do you think?
Should Clark push for a return this season, or simply shut it down until she's... So, this is the scene. Caitlin Clark finally made it back on the court after being out for weeks with it. A groin injury. In a moment, the WNBA, it lost its mind. And it's not like you didn't see that coming, right?
Deep down,
Everyone knows this league is pretty. Much is built around her star power these days. Honestly, every ticket sale, every TV rating, every highlight, Caitlin Clark has her fingerprints all over it. So if she's back in mix, even if she's just halfway healthy, it completely transforms the whole playoff image for both the Indiana Fever and the entire league. That explains the panic. The button just got completely shattered.
let's be really honest.
When Clark initially went down, the narrative throughout the WNBA, I was basically screaming. In Indiana, cooked. She wasn't simply missing a couple of games. We're talking about groin issue. And those injuries don't exactly vanishes overnight. The Fever, who were already held together by what seemed like duct tape with essential players like Sophie Cunningham, Sydney Colson, and Erie McDonald, was also sidelined. He appeared to be. Team is in survival mode, not playoffs contenders. Without Clark's mad shooting vision and her ability to pull, every possession involves 3 defenders. Their offense was basically something you'd see this at a YMCA scrimmage. And that isn't even sarcasm. It was that bad. But this is where things get weird. Fast forward to this week, and suddenly, videos are springing up from Fever practice. You notice Caitlin passing, jogging, taking a couple photographs, and running during warm-ups. She has not yet participated in full contact drills, although close enough for everyone to ask the same question. When does she play?
Fans,
I immediately went wild when those clips
dropped.
completely flooding comment sections with outrageous forecasts, amazing memes, and complete panic attacks over her return. And the league, oh, they were probably biting their nails because she is the only player they simply cannot afford to lose. However, the one player they desperately need on the court to keep all those eyes glued to the goods.
I think it is a good sign. So let's check this out. This is the schedule. 6 p.m. tonight, the Lynx. Yikes. All right. Guys, we're in must-win territory right now. For the playoffs, we are in must-win. The Storm, got to be Tuesday night. I don't think so on this either. However, 4 days later, basically 6 days from now, against the Sparks, and this is a big game.
But here's the kicker. Should she even come back this season? Those are the massive controversy erupts everywhere
Right now,
On one side, you have the shut it down camp argues that Clark's long-term health is worth much more compared to some frantic playoff push.
Groin.
Injuries tend to linger, and honestly, last thing Indiana, or the whole league, is Clark re-injuring herself? Because she attempted to drag a broken roster for the final several weeks.
But
On the other side, you have the Fever supporters. Let's be completely honest. The WNBA marketing team is yelling that the remainder of the season is absolutely. It is useless without her. They want her, not merely to raise the Fever relevant again, but to maintain those arenas packed and the cameras are rolling.
I mean, seeing her out there, little passing the ball around, doing some calisthenics, getting the juices flowing. I know a lot of you are like, why come back? Why come back? Well, look, if she's back and she can get in the flow and she does need to come back, I think with several games to go to get back and try to find her first rhythm for the year, really and truly, getting a good, then yeah, they become very dangerous with a big three.
The terror part isn't merely regarding Caitlyn's health, you people.
it's
Regarding the tremendous rippling impact her return would have. Just imagine Clark returns next week against the Sparks. That is one of those must-win games. Instantly, the Fever's chances of really sneaking into the playoffs completely
change.
And guess what? The Sparks and the Valkyries are fighting in the same exact race. The league might pretend that, be neutral on paper, but deep down, believe me, they're sweating bullets.
Why?
Because of Clark-led Fever in the playoffs. This implies more viewers, more money, and more drama for all. That's the cold, a harsh reality the WNBA urgently needs. Clark is in the postseason.
Period.
Without. It's just another year of Liberty versus Aces. And supporters outside of New York and Vegas will all be wondering, why should I even care?
Because the Sparks are right there with us on the playoff race, and they hold tiebreakers. By the way, so do the Valkyrie. All right, we do have one win. I believe it's one win over the Mercury. And then we've got a Sky team that we should beat, a Mystics team that we should beat, but you can't. I mean, who knows? I think they beat us in the last game. And then we close out the regular season with the Lynx. We're not making the playoffs without Caitlin Clark. There. Yeah, I said it. We're not making the playoffs without Caitlin Clark.
All right, let's dive into the Indiana side of this whole affair. Caitlin Clark is out. Basically, it exposed a slew of unpleasant truths. First, Aaliyah Boston has not been. Without her, I wouldn't be nearly as dominant. We've discussed this previously, but Clark gives Boston a better image than anyone. Without that collaboration, Boston seems like a shell of the future. Everyone was hyped the MVP. She still receives numbers, but it is not exactly scary. Defenses. Secondly, Kelsey Mitchell has. I've been totally grinding to carry the
Scoring.
Her greatest evenings, however, feel wasted since there is simply no floor, space, no rhythm, and no Clark to draw attention. That explains why Fever fans were. They're wearing Kelsey MVP jerseys. They're thirsty for anything that feels like the season is not completely over.
But
Here's when things become even messier. Clark's presence doesn't simply repair the offense. It also fully exposes every opponent who has been talking trash. While she was out, Cheryl Reeve, the Minnesota coach, seemed allergic to Clark's existence at this time. He now has to deal with her again. Other players pour shade on social media. They might just regret it. Say anything you want about her turnovers, her rookie troubles. When Clark's on the floor, the Fever is flat out dangerous. The panic in the league. It is not only about her health.
it's
Knowing those easy evenings versus the weakened Indiana squad are officially over. Speaking about terror, let's not forget the referees. Oh yes, the same WNBA. Officials that have been under fire. Year for allowing Clark to get absolutely hammered like if she were in a boxing match. You assume they are thrilled about her.
Return? Please. Every time she steps
Back on the court, the microscope is glued to them. If she is fouled hard, the fury is quick. If they miss,
calls.
social media lights up with footage. Comes in second. The league understands Clark's safety doesn't just mean keeping her healthy. It's about preserving the one player fans are actually tuning in for.
Right now.
The referees have already. They have demonstrated that they are in over their heads. The time is suddenly under enormous pressure to achieve competence. Good luck
With that.
But wait, let's discuss about Clark's attitude because honestly this is where the narrative becomes really interesting. Caitlin is not wired to sit out if she feels like she can contribute. This is the same player I carried Iowa through absolute wars every March, who never avoids competition, who thrives when the pressure is stupid.
Hi.
If she believes she can play, she does. I am definitely going to press for it.
And
According to all rumors, she is already getting restless sitting on the sidelines, watching her team lose leads and collapse in the second half as it is. She wants out of their part-time work.
there.
The main question is, will the Fever medical staff actually allows or will the league subtly nudges Indiana to safeguard its golden goose from herself? It's a complete disaster. And kind of amusing when you consider.
Think about it.
Other stars miss games. Nobody outside of their fan base observe it. But Caitlin Clark touches a basketball throughout warm-ups and the league rattles. That is why WNBA and panic. This is not an exaggeration. This is the reality of how totally dependent the product is, has become part of her present. So here's the honest truth. If she comes back, looks sharp, even at 80%, it may completely reverse the playoff picture. Upside down. If she does not, then Fever is essentially toast, and the WNBA knows that spotlights degrade quickly without
Her.
So let's dissect this down. What does comeback truly mean? Begin with the
Fever.
currently Indiana's playoff hopes are hanging on a thread. They've been patching the rotation with difficulties. Players, rookies, and basically whomever they can get something off the street. It's not even an exaggeration. By this point, the Fever may hold open tryouts at the YMCA, and supporters would not be surprised. Without Caitlin Clark leading on offense, this club has been running circles, coughed up leads, and handed games away in the third quarter like they offer free samples at Costco.
Caitlin.
Returning to practice doesn't automatically fix all of that, but it definitely gives. Fever is a pulp. Even with her presence, the court alters the dynamics
Completely.
defenses shift, spacing opens up. Aaliyah Boston can now breathe again because she is not triple Kelsey paired up on every possession. Mitchell suddenly doesn't need to play superhero for 4. Clark's gravity, even if she is not moving at full speed, instantly makes the Fever watchable. Back to being competitive. The panic of rival teams come from understanding exactly what Sparks, Valkyries, and even the Sky teams hanging in the same playoff
Zone.
they do not wish to cope with. Clark returns in these last several weeks because one thing we've learned her entire journey back to Iowa is that she does not ease her way back in. She goes full throttle. Remember her earliest games as a rookie. She launched threes from the emblem as though she had been in the league for 5 years. That's simply who she is.
If
She is healthy enough to go on the court. She is healthy enough to torture somebody. And let's be totally honest, the WNBA has a problem. They spent the last month silently savoring Clarkless Fever because the games were dull enough. Nobody outside of fanatical fans really
Cared.
Now that she's potentially returning, the spotlight returns, as does the intensive scrutiny. Every foul, every thrust, every hard crane is moving viral. Every bad ref call leads to a This clip is currently trending. The league just can't. You can't hide from it anymore. And that is a huge. I'm also part of the panic. You can already see the reactions online. Clips. Her shoot-around circulated like it was the second coming. Fans immediately. She began thinking about the game she'd return, publishing highlight montages, and debate on whether she should sit season out or return for the playoffs.
Push.
And as always, the loudest voices. They were not even Fever enthusiasts. They were people that really wished to witness her success or urgently desire to watch her fail. That is Caitlin Clark's impact in a nutshell. Love or hate her, you are watching her. Now, let's chat. On the Fever's playoff picture. Without Clark, they're essentially hanging on life support. The Sparks hold tiebreakers. The Valkyries were right
There.
and each loss simply digs a deeper hole. The Fever cannot afford. There will be no more split games. They need wins. They need them immediately.
That's
Why is her return being observed like it's the Super Bowl? If she comes back for the Sparks game, this is essentially a do-or-die situation. Lose and Fever might as well pack up, win, and suddenly they are back in the M. This is the definition of panic for the rest of the league. As everyone understands, the WNBA does not want their golden ticket. I'm sitting at home during the playoffs.